Hello out there. Welcome to Unlocking Finance Innovation. We're going to explore IBM Planning Analytics and Incorta. My name is Ernie Goff. I'm a solution consultant here at Revelwood, and I'll be emceeing our webinar today. Before we get started, let me tell you a few things. With me today are Mike Nader, VP of Business Analytics Solutions for Incorta, and Lee Lazaro, our IBM practice lead here at Revelwood. We'll go through the Incorta first and then an IBM Planning Analytics update. Revelwood, well, we've been around for those of you that haven't met us yet, we've been around for 27 years. We focus primarily on the Office of Finance, solutions for the Office of Finance, which is, of course, takes us pretty much into every business process that finance has to figure out and report on. You can see that we offer at the bottom a full suite of solutions for the Office of Finance. We are an award-winning adaptive planning partner, IBM Planning Analytics partner, Blackline business partner, and very excited about our relationship, our partnership with Incorta. We've had over 500 successful FP&A implementations around the world. Extensive and true FP&A experience. Many of us have worked in the chair. We have direct experience with the challenges that the finance teams face in terms of getting access to the right data, keeping their plans running, keeping their reporting up to date. And that's something that I think really sets us apart from a lot of other companies, is that we've been there with you. We've had very similar experiences and understand how all of these solutions can really help you move your business forward. And across that, we've developed a diverse team of certified experienced consultants. Many of us have decades of consulting experience, implementations, process management, things along those lines. And we're really happy to work with you and bring you the best that we can. So we're going to start today with an introduction to Incorta. Incorta is a data platform that we're incredibly excited about because of the opportunities it affords us to really bring a data foundation to our analytics models, to everything we work with. And so, really happy to bring Mike Nader to you. And Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And everybody, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So, as Ernie said, Incorta is a data platform. And a lot of times we'll get the question, okay, you're a data platform, or it sounds more like a BI thing. And we're talking about either planning analytics or an Office of Finance type solution. What I really want to hone in on today are the use cases that probably 80% of our customers leverage Incorta for. Incorta is specifically designed to deal with complex operational data. And in particular, we are very adept at taking that information, keeping it available at its detailed grain, and I promise I'll explain that in a moment. And then making that available for use in either analysis or in an environment like IBM, TM1, the planning side of the world. Now, on Ernie's slide says this is awesome direct data mapping. It is awesome because of what it enables. And actually, Ernie, if you don't mind, I'm just going to show, because I think that makes a whole lot more sense. But just keep it in mind that what we're going to do is we're going to connect into a data set, and I'm going to connect in. I am going to then ingest that data, and I'm going to talk about direct data mapping, and I'll talk about what I mean by keeping it at grain and detail. But then we're going to use the information. And I will provide you a few examples of how our customers do it. I'm going to give you an example, of a slightly different technology, but same concept. But so let me hop into this, and I'm going to show this to you really two different ways today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Ernie, you see my desktop?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. So just hide my toolbar here. So Incorta, I'm logged into our web-based UI, and we are a web-based platform. I'm using the Incorta Cloud, but Incorta can be deployed premises-based or Incorta cloud-based or non-Incorta cloud. So if you want to deploy it in Azure or GCP-based, you want to deploy it in Azure or AWS or your own hardware or a custom cloud, we fully support that. Moreover, I'm going to show you a few things today that happen to use an analytics front-end UI that Incorta has packaged. I'm going to go back to Ernie's slide, go back to it mentally. The arrow said, this is really cool, is direct data mapping. That's our engine. It's an indexing layer. That's what's of value here. I'm going to illustrate it with our front end, but we completely support, a Cognos. In fact, I've done multiple deployments with our customers that way. We support other platforms of the tools sitting on top of Incorta because we are designed as a data engine. So where often we see, and we talk about Incorta, is a set of blueprints where we pull data from various source systems. And I'm only going to show this just to execute one of these, but then I want to, in the background while we're talking about other things, but what I really want to highlight is how we work, especially with a custom data source, and how it's very easy for us to grab data and pull that through an Incorta. So, but the other thing, you come to our website, you talk to somebody from Incorta, they'll talk about blueprints or our data applications. And these are illustrative of what our platform does. And they will have components from all portions of the Incorta platform, which we're going to walk through each one of those in a moment. But I'm going to start by deploying out. I'm going to connect to Oracle e-Business Suite. And I'm going to deploy out, I'm going to ingest some data from that. I'm going to deploy out components around it. And then while this is running, to give us just a few seconds, and I'll tell it to make sure to connect to my sample instance, I'm going to build something from the ground up for you. I'm just going to use sample data here. The thing I want you to focus on is that I'm going to bring in from Oracle e-Business Suite in this particular case, not just aggregate numbers like my PO headers, but the lines, the distributions, all of the detail from my ERP and of the relationships that are inherent in that ERP. I'll show you how all those get built, how you can modify those momentarily, and then we will put, along with the physical data, a semantic structure so it's very easy for other platforms, including TM1, to leverage. And then I'll show you a couple of examples on the front end, but the importance is here. It's what direct data mapping enables. So I'm going to let this run. It's going to go through and pull data in, extract it, enrich it, load it, post-load. We'll come back here. But really, I'm going to start in a completely different environment. And I'm going to start so you understand what it looks like to build something from the ground up that we don't have a blueprint for. And I'm going to connect in here as an example to this online store database. I'll make sure it's running. Now, this is the old, AdventureWorks-esque online bike store, but it's wonderful to build a demonstration from, especially along these lines. So these are just JDBC connections into the data source right here. If I edit one, you're going to get the URL, you get a username, you'll get some options. Each one of these no different than setting up a connection in almost any platform. But where Incorta starts to become different is how we hold and index, map that data. So I'm going to create a house for this, and I'm going to put just right up top, so I don't have to go looking for it. Now I'm just creating an environment, pull some data in. And I'm going to pull some data into the schema based on that connection. Now, based on the connection information, I can see these. Let's grab them all. It's 32 tables. Now, Incorta is connecting into those and doing a metadata scrape. Here's what's in the data source. Here's what it'll be named in Incorta. I can change it here. I can change it later. This is the data type in the source. This is the data types in Incorta. And this is how Incorta is going to leverage the information. And because it's SQL, I could go, this is a SQL source. I could go customize the SQL, but I don't want to. I'm just going to let everything flow through. And if there are existing relationships, key foreign keys, Incorta will bring those in. But we know that that's wonderful in concept. Very often, though, they're either not there or I want to extend. And so that is what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to show you how to do that. And that's what's happening on that other screen. We're going to connect. We're going to ingest, enrich, map. Now, I haven't done, let me go ahead and just save this. Yep, I got to load all my data here. No data has been loaded. I have 32 or 33 joins, got a bunch of tables, but it's that structure. But the really neat thing here is the data is going to flow in the structure of the source. I'm going to be able to use it immediately. If I'm, if Ernie's the manager for my online bike store, my product manager, and he wants to understand the nature of product reviews by, let's say, state over here. Product review here, I gotta start walking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables. Completely legitimate business question, potentially highly complex data implications. Incorta is designed to eliminate all the secondary and tertiary modeling required. So I'm going to be able to load and then just use the data in this form. And I'll simplify it only to make it aesthetically pleasing to either another system or the user. Now I'm going to execute a full load here. And it's going to go through and pull, the data for those 32 tables into the Incorta environment. And so what's happening here is we are going through row by row, column by column, and pulling the data and ingesting it. And then we're also compressing it. So for the more IT folks on the call, Incorta persists its data in Parquet files, relevant for the nature of compression and also the openness of it, meaning that it's your data, always is. If you need to move it to another system, it's addressable, it's readable. But Incorta will go through each one of these, and as it completes, if it's got some rejections, I can click on those and see them. We're going to skip that today. But it will deduplicate the data, and then it will create what we call a data map. I'm going to go back to Ernie's slide, that one picture. This is awesome. Incorta learns not only the relationships across the tables, let's say table to table, but it understands down to a cell basis how to move from each cell in the data set to every other cell in the data set. And frankly, if I extend that by joining to something else, I can use it immediately. So in minute 38 seconds or so, 52 seconds, I pulled in 25-ish million rows. It'll round up or round down, and it's compressed to 722 megs of space. It's in this format. Now I know this data set, so I'm going to do something I would not, I'm going to say it again, I would not just say, hey, do this to your business users, or have TM1 start pulling data from Incorta like this. But to illustrate the concept, I'm just going to click Explore, and it'll bring us out to the Incorta front end. And really all I want to show you here is I'm going to show you a really simple example of just what it's like to pull the data just after I've loaded it. I know in this data set line totals revenue, and I can name it such. I want to look at it by, let's say, category, and so I got product category name. I'll go by subcategory. Maybe I want to do state, state, province, name, and break it down further. Under the covers, what Incorta is doing is it's pulling data from 7 different tables there. I put this on the screen to illustrate what your users do not have to understand. They don't need to understand the complexity. Incorta is just walking through that complexity. But I would never expect somebody who doesn't understand a data source to come in and just play with it like this. So we're going to simplify it. But we're going to do two things. We're going to simplify it. We're also going to extend it. Ernie and I were talking about what use case we wanted to highlight here. And one of the things we wanted to be able to do was show how I can take a couple of data sources and feed them together. Now, so I've loaded some data into Incorta, same way you just saw me do it. That's got weather information, weather globally by zip code by day for 5 years. It's about 75 million records or so. And I put that out into another schema on Incorta. So if I want to take something like my sales order header, and I want to look at the date, I can compare that to my global weather here, to the date. And there's more than one column, but that's the only column that type match, so that's what shows up here. And I can do it by zip code. So I can understand when something sold and where something sold, and what the weather was when something sold and where something sold. And by adding that relationship, saving the changes, Incorta re-indexes the data set. So as far as Incorta is concerned, this weather data is now part of the larger structure. And I can start using it. I can use it just like we looked at a moment ago. But instead of having to go through all 32, now 33 tables, what I'm going to do is simplify it. And so I sometimes take issue. Do we even call this a schema? It is. But the business schema is simply a way to aesthetically, to group like columns together for analysis. And frankly, I can do this like I'm building a report. I don't even need to grab really anything. So I can say, all right, I want to bring some of this data together. So I want to see it as I do it. And I'm going to take the data from here. That's the data we pulled out a moment ago. And from my weather information right here. And I know I want revenue. And I know it's called line total. And I'll aggregate something here. So we got my revenue. And I want to get my category and subcategory. I want to understand, let's say well, how about my product ID, since I'm looking at my products and my order date. And then my state, of course, just building out the data set that we're going to use, and we're going to persist this for larger use. So save us a little time here. And I'll go to my weather. We'll grab the average temperature. So I've got my feels like. Have our average. It's clouds. It feels like max. Feels like average. We can pull those into my data set here. And that's truly all I want to do. In fact, we're just going to move everything down. I've now pulled the two data sets into one category, subcategory. The last thing, product, state, order date. This will work for now. So I'm going to save this. Save changes here. Now I can explore with it. So just like we did before, I want to look at my category, my subcategory. I maybe look at my state province, but I definitely want to look at my revenue. Here's my data coming in for Incorta, and I'll go ahead and just save that out into my environment here. And for sake of brevity, I'm going to duplicate this 2 times. And the reason I'm even showing this is that this is the thing that got me so excited the very first time I saw Incorta. And it was as simple as we call a list table and an aggregate table and a line chart. The data down here, I'm going to disaggregate it. I'm just going to put it all into a flat list. So I've got all my information. The only thing I'm going to do here is add up, put a total at the bottom. So I've got 8.2 billion in revenue. My temperatures are adding up. So let me go ahead and just, I'll tell it to run a max or something at the bottom here, just so I can see it. My product IDs are adding up. I'll tell it not to add up anything. But I've got that data in place. And just as importantly, under the covers, it's hitting 7, 8, 9, 10 tables. And here, maybe I change this over just to get some kind of a graphical view on, how the world's operating. Just swap those around a little bit, and then I'll finish this up here, and I'm going to show you the output of that other process running in the background. So a really simple line chart. Break it down by state, by revenue. But what I've got up top, and I'll even turn it just into a pivot table for us, and pull state onto that. I should put these on that. I've got state, category, subcategory. That's 49 rows, but it's 9 million rows that are the real data set here. And the thing that got me so excited about Incorta, if I want to know what the 12 million or $12,243 of bike stand revenue is in Idaho, all I need to do is click on the number. And of that 9 million rows, that's the 77 that always align to it, and it never misses. It doesn't miss because it never wound the data through a complex circle. It's all still what it looks like here in this grain. So going back to what we just deployed, I deployed 4 million rows of Oracle AP data. And it could be SAP, could be JD Edwards, could be ECC HANA, what have you. Here's the structure. That's how the data's in. I can load the data incrementally every 5 minutes. I have a simplified view of this, broken out, and this is the kind of thing that you would expose to TM1 or to your users. It looks dimensional in nature, but it's really a drag and drop. It's not a reload of anything. It's just grouping of like columns. But here are my suppliers. Here are my payables measures. And I can build from scratch, or I can go to something that we deployed. Again, as an example, here's my payables overview. On that 4 million records of data. A little more graphical. The bottom table here has got 200 and I'll round up 210,000 rows. Your invoice details. If I want to understand where any of them come from, 355.99 million, 16,226, and there's your number at the bottom. It doesn't miss because I never removed the transactions, the data fidelity from your view. And that's possible because of the direct data map. Put the front end aside, think about it. Incorta is that thing that's going to connect into your source systems, allow you to have a digital twin of that schema, incrementally feed it, and then provide that information out to TM1 or through a very, not that one, through a very standard, more dimensional type of view, or leverage it from a broader analytics inside of Incorta, or leveraging Cognos or another front. Ernie, I'll pause there and see if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
No, thanks, Mike. And for the audience, that's all. The reason we're excited about it too is exactly what Mike was talking about. Is how often have you been in a situation where you have a mature model and you make an acquisition and acquire multiple new sources or different instances of Salesforce? We see Incorta's potential as a foundation, so that you can get more out of your effort, get more out of your TM1 models. So it becomes this fantastic way to build a foundation that serves its own purpose in terms of data management, allows you to bring those business views, those business schemas tailored to your analytic model without having to rebuild them every time. Because of that direct data mapping, it becomes easier and easier to use these tools as your business expands, as things change. Mike, thanks so much for showing us that today. Really looking forward to continuing our work together. Now I'd like to turn it over to Lee Lazaro. Lee, are you all set?
Yes, sir. Excellent. Yes, thanks. So the other part that we want to talk a little bit about is the IBM environment, PA, Planning Analytics. So recently, over the past few months, there have been two major changes that IBM's announced throughout the environment. Piece number one, which you may have heard about. I know IBM's been talking about this a lot. They've been pushing it pretty much every way that they can, whether it's webinars, postings, emails, links on the site. They are deprecating legacy tools, legacy tool deprecation. But the other piece that you may not be as aware of is they are also replacing the connector, the tool that we use called Secure Gateway. So what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes is what do both of these mean and how does that impact you? So legacy tool deprecation. So IBM has announced changes, and really the main change is they're getting rid of the old and bringing in the new. And the concept of old is the tools that you have been using for the last 20 or 30 years. The concept of the new, everything PA oriented. PAW, Planning Analytics Workspace, PAX, Planning Analytics Excel. And the concept of that is the legacy tool deprecation is broken down into two approaches. If you're on the cloud environment, IBM has been referencing what they call the rich tier. So the definition of rich tier is really the fancy way of talking about what you know as remote desktop. So the rich tier is being removed in mid-September. There is no specific date. So as I've been talking to customers, I have been stating that it's going to be removed on September 1st. I just do that as a little bit of a panic/planning approach. Mid-September is probably going to be September 15th, 16th, something in that range. But either way, rich tier is being removed. And what that means is that if you are a cloud user, the concept of remote desktop, the concept of the legacy tools that go along with it will be shut down. They will be disabled. If you're on premise, the approach is a little bit different. The definition of legacy tool isn't the fact that IBM is turning it off. Cloud environment. The greatest thing about a cloud environment is that IBM or whoever's hosting it will be able to maintain and manage everything for you. The challenge of a cloud environment is their definition of maintenance and management is when we upgrade, when we take something away, we just do it right then and there. On-premise gives you all the power, gives you the opportunity to determine when you do it. And the way IBM has deprecated the legacy tool on-premise is they put an end to support. So PAL, Planning Analytics Local, that's the terminology that IBM is now using, PAL, for the on-premise local installation. End of support date for PAL 209 is currently defined as the end of April. And the reason that this is legacy tool deprecation is the next version up, instead of 20X, 21, 21 does not include the legacy tools. So taking these pieces away means that legacy tools are no longer going to be there. So what does that mean? Legacy tools are not going to be there. So the main thing to think about is what will change. Not everything's going to change. The legacy tools will go away, and this is going to impact how you perform many of your tasks in the environment, but not everything changes. So what will change? The two big tools that you've been using for years and years, Architect and Perspectives, those will go away. Okay? If you're a cloud user, the access to that remote desktop, that access to that tool called Rich Tier is going to go away. Okay? But what is not going to go away? TM1 Web. You will still have the ability to use TM1 Web. As we've talked to many of our customers, they have built great web-based interfaces, input templates, structured reports, ad hoc analysis. Everything that you're using on that tool called TM1 Web will still be functional. You'll still have the opportunity to use the new Excel tool, PAX, Planning Analytics Excel. That PAX tool, some people call it PAX, some people call it PATH-A, Planning Analytics for Excel. That Excel tool will still allow you to publish out to the web. Okay? You'll also still be able to run external programs. So you'll still be able to run your batch scripts, your PowerShell scripts. You'll still be able to use your TI command called execute command. And all of that will still function in the updated cloud environment. Oops. All right. So while Ernie's bringing us back to the slide, I will say that you'll still be able to run the external programs. You'll still be able to use everything through execute command. If you're a cloud user, you'll still be able to have access to what you know right now as the S drive. You'll still be able to upload scripts and files and imports and exports, and you'll still have access to the S drive. But the difference is the way that you access it will change. In the existing world, you use remote desktop, you go into a Windows File Explorer, and you just access a drive, //data S, or your S drive for shared drive. In the new world, you'll just be able to use some form of an FTP tool. You'll be able to use FileZilla or WinSCP or any kind of an FTP tool with the same ID and password that you have in your welcome kit, and that will give you the opportunity to still have access to your S drive. Okay? So in summary, what will change? The tool that you use. Architect and Perspectives become Planning Analytics. PAW, Planning Analytics Workspace. PAX, Planning Analytics Excel. What won't change? The drives you have, the functionality, many of the commands. So one of the things that you want to think about is because there will be some things that change, you're going to want to plan for it. Anyone who knows me knows that one of my favorite all-time words is planning. Okay? In this particular case, we know that you have to plan for something, but your bigger question is asking yourself, what do I need to plan for? So this is where you want to think about, how do I do that upgrade? If you're on premise, you're going to be doing a software upgrade. You want to start planning with your IT team. You want to make sure that you have the proper machinery. Some of our customers are using the same machine. Some customers are saying this is a great opportunity for me to make a change. Maybe I have some kind of a physical box, I want to go to virtual. Maybe I have a machine, I want to make it more powerful, more CPU, more RAM, or something. Okay? So if you're in an on-premise, this is an opportunity to plan for the machinery change. If you are a cloud user, this is where you want to think about an analysis of what's going to change. And Revelwood has a 3-step program that we've been working with customers to determine what needs to be changed. Let's talk about what you do right now. Let's talk about how it's going to be different. Let's get you there. One of the biggest things that we're noticing is the report conversion. Every customer has reports, whether you're doing it on TM1 Web or whether you're doing it somewhere on an Excel environment. This is something where we are going to need to convert reports. Some of the functionality, some of the details behind the scenes are a little bit different, so some of your reports need to be tweaked. But this brings up a great opportunity. This is an opportunity not just to say, do it. It's an opportunity to think through, what do I want to do? I have worked with multiple customers over the past few months who have come up with a scary number to say, we have hundreds of reports, what are we going to do? In a couple of cases, we've heard we have thousands of reports. This is a great opportunity to step back and think through your processing to determine, what do I really need to do? And in most of these cases, that hundreds or thousands of that big scary number isn't really usable, isn't really something that people are using. We have one situation where we had a customer who talked about thousands of reports. We said, let's talk to your users. Let's figure out what reports are you using? What reports are the users actually looking at? And we brought that down to about 90 reports. Working with another customer right now who initially started with hundreds of reports, we brought that down to 60. This is a great opportunity to clean up and organize how you're using reports, as opposed to simply just saying convert everything. And that segues into how. How do I do everything new? How do my end users create new reports? How do they make efficient reports? How do I develop in the new tool? How do I maintain and administer? And this is where many of our customers are looking into some training. It's a great opportunity not just to think about replicating what you do right now, but maybe expanding. Many of our customers are saying, hey, I've always wanted to. I always wanted to learn how to become a developer. I always wanted to have a backup admin. Hey, I always wanted to make my reports go faster. This is a great opportunity to think about it. And probably your biggest thing to think about has nothing to do with the tool itself, has to do with the calendar right now. For anybody who's on a calendar year, you are either just starting or about to start your budget. You're prepping for your year-end close. Even though it's August right now, you think about it a few months in advance. Make sure that you're planning your timing so that it correlates, your technical aspect correlates with your business side. A lot of this stuff comes into the legacy migration plan, but the other thing for us to think about also is the second change that IBM has made. So in addition to deprecating the legacy tools, the tool called Secure Gateway is also changing. Okay? Some of you are familiar with Secure Gateway, some of you have never heard of it. So let me start with talking about what is Secure Gateway. Okay? Secure Gateway enables users to integrate cloud services such as Planning Analytics with on-premise enterprise systems. Okay? What does that mean? It's really just a fancy way of saying ODBC for the cloud. And for those of you who are familiar with ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, it's something that you've set up and that's how you're pulling in your actuals. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, again, this is just a fancy technical term to talk about the link between how do I link my other systems into Planning Analytics? How do I grab my actuals from my GL model? How do I grab some HR data? How am I grabbing my invoices and transactions? Okay. The Secure Gateway tool is getting deprecated and it's getting changed. It's getting deprecated at the end of October. So what IBM has announced is that they've announced that at that time, all Secure Gateway instances will be deprovisioned and deleted. And what they're doing is they're replacing it with another tool called IBM Cloud Satellite Connector. Okay. Now, this only impacts your cloud users. On-premise users, you'll continue to use all of your existing ODBC setups, but for cloud users, we're going to do the transition. So one of the things that I've started doing is IBM Cloud Satellite Connector is a great word and it's a great phrase when you're selling and talking techie and all those kinds of things. We just abbreviated it. So you're often going to hear me and other people through the IBM community just reference this as satellite. Okay? So based on that satellite, what is it and how are you going to use it? The secure gateway, if we can switch slides, Ernie, go to the next slide. The secure gateway versus the cloud connector. So for those of you who have used the cloud, this screen looks very familiar to you. This is the screen that's the administrator screen. Okay? And for those of you who are using the concept of secure gateway, you've already set something up. And the way that you set it up is you downloaded a small application, you put it onto the source system, your GL system, your SQL database, etc., and you configured it. Okay? Secure Gateway refers to that as a client. Satellite has changed the word a little bit. Satellite refers to this as a satellite connector agent, which we've just been calling the agent. How are we going to use this? The screen that you're looking at is a work in progress from the IBM site. So please don't panic when you see some of the dates. There's a date listed on the screen that talks about a few days from now. This was grabbed from IBM about 2 months ago. So please disregard the dates, but focus on the concept here. Okay? Right now, when you were doing Secure Gateway as an administrator, you would be able to go into the Secure Gateway tile. If you look over at the right, there's a tile there called Secure Gateway. What's going to happen in the next version of Planning Analytics Workspace in version 89, there's going to be a brand new tile, which you can see at the very bottom left called Satellite Connector. There's going to be the additional Satellite Connector. Now, if you're an existing user, you'll be able to see both of these for the short term. If you're a new customer, you're only going to see the satellite tile. Okay? That's the concept of how you're going to grab it. IBM is going to build a wizard, or they're in the process of finalizing a wizard right now, so that you'll be able to go into the satellite connector and we'll be able to install it. Okay. How do we install it? The steps to do the installation, and Ernie, if we could go to the next slide, please. The steps to do the installation is really 4 parts. It's the exact same 4 parts that you did when you initially set up your secure gateway. Okay. Step number 1, we're going to create a connection using the wizard. That is going to be that button. It's as simple as clicking on that tile, clicking on that button from the slide before. We are going to go into the satellite connector and we're going to follow some steps on the wizard. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to download a few files. So we're going to download that agent. The agent is that tool, or is that small application that we're going to put on the source system. And we're going to download some security pieces, a configuration file and an access key. The third part, we're simply just going to configure the agent. This is where we're going to talk all the techie stuff. This is where we're going to set up our firewalls and our ports and our IP addresses. Okay? In this situation, for this step 3, if this is something where you have an IT team and they're very comfortable with it, you're able to install and configure this on your own. If this is something where you feel a little bit uncomfortable doing some of those aspects, this is where Revelwood's here to help. Okay? This is where we're able to help you install and configure. And the specific details of what we're going to configure are listed on the IBM site. The reason that we reference the IBM site is they differ based on your region. The ports that we're going to use, the IP addresses, the names that we're going to use. If you're in the US, it's going to be one. If you're overseas somewhere else in various areas, it's going to use different setups. Okay? And once we've set up those 3 pieces, go into the wizard, download the files, install and configure it. The Planning Analytics tool is going to allow you to easily import your secure gateway connections so you don't have to recreate everything. If you're in a situation right now where we have a series of ODBCs or series of secure gateways over the cloud, then we don't want to have to recreate one link to your GL system, another link to HR, another link to your revenue system, another, and I can go on and on. This is going to create a wizard where we're going to be able to go in and we're going to be able to import those 4 pieces. And the final piece to think about then, as you're looking at that, just like we said before, we want to have a plan. So we don't want to just do this. What we want to do is we want to think this one through. Okay? So Ernie, if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay. This is where you want to start planning. This is where you want to start thinking. Okay. I always come back to planning. This is where you're going to want to start thinking about your hardware. You want to make sure that you have the ability to put that connector agent in. You want to make sure that you get your IT team to start thinking about ports. You opened up some ports for secure gateway. We know we're going to close those and we're going to reopen different ones. This is where we're going to look at our IP addresses and pieces like that. From a connection standpoint, almost every one of Revelwood's customers, almost every one of the customers that we talk to will be able to set everything up with a single setup. The licensing agreement allows for you to have one connection through satellite, but that one connection will support your entire environment. That one connection will work with both your prod environment and your dev environment. That one connection will allow you to set up to 35 different endpoints. So by setting up that one connection, we're going to be able to connect in 35 different ODBCs or secure gateway connections. And again, I keep referencing ODBC because it's a phrase that most people are comfortable with. But that gives us the ability to use one tool, set up 35 different connections. The thing that you want to think about, again, give yourself the time. Previously, when we were talking about the tool, we were thinking about your budget. We were thinking about your business cases. We were thinking about the training. Here, we just want to make sure that there's a test. We want to make sure that you have enough time to fully test this. We want to introduce proper procedures where we set it up in dev, and then we want to test it out in prod. So we want to make sure that knowing that there's only a few months, knowing that there's a lot of stuff going on over the next few months with budget, and if you're international, there's a lot of vacations going on right now, and prepping for other systems. We want to make sure that you're planning this through and thinking the time to fully test it. So the biggest takeaway from all of these changes are think through how this is going to impact you and what kinds of concerns that you have, and that's where Revelwood can help. We have helped many customers with the legacy migration, and we're still helping more over the course of the next month or so. And we are working with many customers to work on the secure gateway to satellite plan. One of the pieces one of the things to think about, one of the pieces that Revelwood can bring to the table is the situations that you're in right now are very similar to the situations that other customers are in. And one of the things that we want to be able to help with is not recreate the wheel. If we know that something is going to come up 2, 3, 4 steps down the road, we want to give us the opportunity to plan for it. If we know that there is a game plan that we want to follow, testing, training, migration, etc., we want to be able to use some kind of a structured approach. So based on all of that, those are the 2 big changes that we have. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ernie.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lee. And thanks again, Mike. So what we had today was, 2 great examples of how innovation provides opportunities to us. We've got a new entry into the data platform world that is making advances that help to reduce the amount of time spent on data engineering and other sort of intermediate tasks. We've got a platform that's, in its own quest to make enhancements, has given us an opportunity to consider how we're working, consider the ways we're working, and to really sort of refresh and rebuild for the future. In all cases, this is nothing new, right? We've all seen change happen. I'll just call out and kind of layer on what Lee said. After 27 years, we have seen a lot of this. We've been present for a lot of this as new platforms have risen, as platforms we love grow and change and try to innovate and extend what they can do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I put up some contact information. And again, thanks, Lee. Thanks, Mike. Thank you all for joining. And this has been really great to share this with you. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, everyone.